Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, and I am back again for another channel update random topic video because there's been a lot that has been going on yet again since I last did one of these earlier this month. Cannot believe that it is almost October. On one hand, it seems like the year has flown by at the blink of an eye, and on the other hand, especially with a lot of real world shenanigans going on right now, that I won't go into much here again. But on the other hand, it seems like things have been going on for an eternity, and I don't know if I can take another three. I don't know if our country can take another 3 years of this nonsense, to put it politely and mildly. But yeah, any bets as to whether we're going to have a federal government tomorrow? Guess we'll have to find out and see. But not to start off the video on a negative note, but that's really all I'm going to say about it. Um, but yeah, I'm back for another update. There has been a lot going on in the world of games and technology and accessibility and game accessibility and a whole bunch of game releases. So I am definitely keeping busy. For those new to the channel, I do unlock videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. As of right now, I am toying with the idea if things get too crazy busy again, and I'm starting to run low on content, I may knock things down to Wednesday and Saturdays at some point, but again, I've been able to record a lot of videos from my backlog recently, so it hopefully shouldn't be a problem, and we're going to keep at the current release schedule for now. But it's just an option that I wanted to let you guys know in the last couple of update videos. It's still something that's potentially on the table should things get too chaotic or busy. Thank you to everybody who has been supporting my work. Whether it's developers reaching out for game and app testing. I've had a couple developers reach out to me actually recently, so that's a great thing. Thank you very much for that. I've enjoyed working with you. I've had a few people reach out just for comments and questions regarding accessibility or game accessibility, channel topics, and a couple people have provided feedback on, potential ideas for, less kicking the schedule back to 2 days a week, or altering the content slightly for like some of the shorter videos. So yeah, that stuff is still a possibility, but I think we're okay for now. But thank you to everybody who has been supporting my work, the channel, who has been sending comments, emails, whatever. Keeps you going. I do also put everything into playlists, so if you are new again to the channel, you can find hopefully what you're looking for in the playlist section. I cover everything from blind accessible games, low vision accessible games, PC, console, iOS, a lot of PC and iOS, easiest to record for me. But I've got interviews and podcast appearances and presentations that I've done. I've got the Growing Up Illegally Cited playlist where I answer questions and talk about different blindness and accessibility related topics and answer questions that people have. And just all kinds of stuff, VR accessibility, VR games and experiences, geeky collectibles I've collected over the years. You name it. Just check out the playlist section. Hopefully you'll find something of interest there. As far as content goes, like I said, I've been recording a lot of videos lately. We've had tons of demos. We've had the Brutal Indie Game Showcase. There's like a Steam Next Fest going on. There was Boomstock, where we had some even more retro boomer shooters. So all of those have kind of been my jam. I've recorded several demo videos, many of which I've released already. More demos keep coming. We have lots of games that came out in September, and there's even more coming out in October. There's, I think, between like the 20th and the 30th or the 31st of October, I don't know when I'm gonna find time to play all those, let alone the money to buy them all. I'm glad that I'm glad that I'm primarily playing indie games because typically they're a little bit cheaper to afford. Because I have not even really touched a lot of AAA games. I haven't looked at. I don't have Borderlands 4 yet. I don't have Silent Hill F or um, there's another horror game that I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head. It looked sort of interesting, but I wasn't sure. But again, there's been a fair few. Oh, and then like Ghosts of Yotoi comes out here. If it's not out already, I forget if it's out already, if it comes out in the next day or two. So, like I said, I haven't even gotten to play a lot of those. And I'm not one of these channels. I'm not one of these, big websites or streamers or channels that because I don't get a lot of views or, for whatever, I don't get review copies for many games. The vast majority, probably 95, 98% of the content that I cover, be it games, hardware devices, gadgets, assistive tech, whatever, I buy them all myself. So, um, unless I tell you otherwise, I have bought whatever it is I'm covering on the channel. Thank you to the developers who have been generous to give me a review key for things in the past, and it is very much appreciated. But yeah, so I will cover things as I'm able, but I'm probably not going to be able to cover every, especially big AAA release. We got 70, 80, $90 games now. Um, so it's just there's so much, and then besides there's so much coming out that it's crazy. But there's a lot of indie game goodness, plenty of that to look forward to. So a lot of games there. Um, Speaking of announcements, I think I teased this in a previous channel update video, but I can officially announce it now because the podcast is out. AppleViz has started a new, about a quarterly podcast. We're kind of still ironing things out. It's not going to be a weekly or even, monthly podcast, but we're going to try to do like 3 or 4 a year, potentially some developer interviews and stuff. But I have another tab open here.
Application Gamers Corner.
Gamers Corner. I will put this link in the description of the video below as well. And so we have Thomas Donville, who's the host, Anonymous. You know him from AppleViz if you're familiar with the site. And we have Aaron Spelker. I've been on his video series a few times. But Aaron and I got invited to be a part of this new gaming podcast. And primarily we will be covering iOS accessible games. We'll try to cover titles that have come out within that 3 or 4 month period. And then we also kind of do, like, Aaron has this sort of flashback section where we kind of take a look at a game that maybe people forgot about, or maybe people were new to the podcast and new to iOS accessible games, and we want to put focus on something that's still available that people might not know about. And our final section in the podcast is kind of my section where we take a look at a game that is outside of iOS. Could be a PC game, console game, whatever. But something else that is blind accessible that we could play. Because, again, the AppleViz has expanded. We have mainly the iOS sections, but then we have the non-iOS posts and forums and stuff like that. And so as part of that, if people have started on their iPhones and iPads, but they want to branch out and say, maybe I would like to look into console gaming. I've been hearing stuff about Xbox and PlayStation and PC. So the first episode of that is out. Came out on Monday. And you can check that out for yourself. I'm proud of the way the first episode came out. I think it turned out really well. thank you to the other guys for being hosts on the podcast, and to AppleViz for inviting us to be a part of it. I think it's going to be fun. So yeah, another project I'm involved in.
Channel content.
Fun
Schedule.
stuff. We had a Sony State of Play a few days ago, and there were some pretty neat things in there. I think the first and foremost, Wolverine, they showed a little bit of a gameplay teaser for that. This is going to be a hard M-rated game. It is gory as hell. It looks like really, again, gory, violent. This is from the Spider-Man devs. So I'm hoping that we're also going to have a lot of accessibility features and gameplay, just like the latest Spider-Man games do. And I think potentially Wolverine might be a little bit easier because you're not swinging through the skies as Spider-Man. You're running around, you got your claws. Maybe you would use your claws to climb up a building or something, just almost like Prototype. Anybody remember Prototype? But yeah, it's coming out sometime next year. That looked pretty good. I'm very intrigued to see what that's gonna be like. And there were a fair bit of, first-party single-player games. Nothing really stood out too much for me, but they did show a lot of games that I'm potentially interested in. They had a sequel to, not Resogun. I can't think of the name of the game. I believe I covered it on my channel at one point. Early PS5 title where it was like this third-person kind of roguelike type of deal, but you had this bullet hell type of gameplay, and there's a sequel to that. And it looks pretty interesting, especially with like the bullet patterns. They kind of have this weird, they almost like, they don't just come at you. They go into these like formations, and they got these really bright, glowy bullets. So it kind of looks a little bit easier to see. But then again, you got all the bullets, and it'll be interesting to see how blind or even low vision accessible that game will be. Ghost of Yotoi is coming out soon, so I think that comes out later this week. It might be out already, but I think it comes out later this week. Trying to think what other things they had. Like I said, Wolverine was the main one that caught my attention. Some RPGs, a lot of your kind of a single player type of stuff. But it was a pretty decent showing. Again, there's nothing that really stood out to me. They got some new speakers that you can use with your consoles and your PC. They're wireless. I don't know. I think they're kind of expensive though. I think they're like $250-$350. And then they announced some other God of War controller. We did not get people were thinking they were going to get a 2D Metroidvania God of War type of game. That was not shown, or that was not announced, or anything like that. But, we did get a look at some accessible, or some, we got a look at some upcoming games, early 2026, maybe later 2026. So they do have a few good things coming. Microsoft also had a Tokyo Games Show event. They announced a few things. I did not watch that one live because I was busy. But a Unfortunately, and I don't know what's going on with Microsoft. Like, I want to root for them because they did announce a new Forza Horizon game, which I'm very intrigued about, especially with the recent Forza Motorsport and its blind driver assist features and audio cues. If I really hope that team, when they experienced layoffs, I hope the accessibility team did not get gutted and they carry that forward, because to have an open world driving game, and not, again, they had a little bit of that drive assist in Forza Motorsport, was it 5? But it would just keep you on the road and you just accelerated. Like, you really didn't have any agency or really full control over the car. So it was kind of meh. It was a neat first step, but again, there just wasn't a lot of freedom in how you played if you were blind. But if they can carry the Forza Motorsport stuff forward to the new Forza Horizon game, I will be very interested in playing that, because you have all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of races. You have races and checkpoint things. You have you're trying to discover barn finds to find new cars. You have off-road. You have on track races, city races, all kinds of different stuff. So I'm potentially very intrigued about that. And Forza Horizon 6 is going to be in Japan. So that could be pretty fun. You could have you could see a lot of city areas. I could see, a lot of your countryside. I think that'll be a really interesting location to have a Forza game. So that'll be cool. But, so that's potentially good news. I don't know. They just said 2026. We don't know if it's going to be early or late 2026. But, and then we also have things like Ninja Gaiden 4, which is coming out later this month. That looks sweet. They actually did release a trailer a few days ago detailing that they were going to have some difficulty settings, and there, so you have, I forget, like several different difficulty settings. You can make it super, you can make it easier. You can make it super, super hard, because Ninja Gaiden games, I literally just covered Ninja Gaiden 2 Black on the channel recently, and these are great games, but they are hard, and it's a different kind of hard than Dark Souls. It's not a Souls-like. Like, Ninja Gaiden is super fast. You have your combos, but you have to dodge, you have to block, you have to parry. Like, it is not a button masher. If you go in thinking you're going to do that, you are going to just get absolutely annihilated. So we've got Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out. Very much looking forward to that. There's been rumors of a Halo 1 remake. I'm sure other things are going to also be coming to the PlayStation. They've had Forza Horizon. They had the recent Gears of War remake again that has hit both PS5 and Xbox Series. But here's the frustration. So, there are getting to be some games. Unfortunately, we had some that got lost, like that. I really wanted to see what was going to become of that Perfect Dark. I really wanted to see that because I loved the original Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark 0 was, I really didn't care for it. I wanted to like it, but I really didn't care for it all that much. But I was curious what that's going to be. We got Fable coming up sometime whenever. So there are games, we have Outer Worlds 2, which that is another game that is also coming out late in October, which I don't know when I'm going to find time to play that, but I really want to. It sounds like they made a lot of improvements, and I like the first game. So here's hoping they also added some improved accessibility too. But my biggest problem with Microsoft is I talked to not very long ago, couldn't have been more than a couple months ago, that Microsoft had raised all of their prices on their systems and accessories. Well, guess what? They gone and did it again. All of their consoles, your Series X, your Series S, your special editions, and yada yada. At minimum, some consoles have gone up like $20 and some have gone up more. You could spend anywhere between $400 and $800. I remember when I got my Series S a couple years ago, I literally bought it, and I had it was like an Amazon coupon. I bought the thing for just under $200, and now, like I said, the prices are going up. It's just unprecedented. Like companies may find ways to make the games cheaper. They find ways to make things more efficient to bring the costs down. But, I don't know if they're not finding as much of a way to do that this generation. And then, of course, you've got Tweedledee and Tweedledum and company, leadership of our country, thinking that tariffs are the next best thing since sliced bread. And so that is making things fluctuate and making costs of everything going up. I mean, good Lord, my groceries, my utilities, my electric bill. Yeah, things are definitely going up. And now, it's been long enough since this administration has been in office that they've been able to, the companies have gone through some of their stock. So let's say they had to bring in a bunch of stuff from China or from another country. They would try to get as much inventory as they could early on so they didn't have to pass these price hikes on to consumers. But now it's like, okay, well, now we have to really start importing again, or, we have to get our stock back in. And because of the economic climate, as they say, they won't just call, I said, if I were them, I would call them out on it, because of these people and what they're doing. Yeah, everybody gets to pay more for everything. So it's really, especially this far into the generation, you're already hearing rumors about a new Xbox in 2027, potentially. And then we have the Xbox ROG Ally coming out in the middle of October. And you're looking at like $600 for the low end, $800, $900 for the high end version. Or no, I think it's like $1,000 for the high end version. So I don't know. Like it's really hard to recommend anybody get an Xbox right now if you don't already have one. I mean, there are a few accessible games. You've got your Mortal Kombat, you've got the Veil, you've got As Dusk Falls, you've got, of course, Forza, Stories of Blossom. There are a handful of blind accessible games. Your Street Fighters, your Tekkens, fighting games that people play, but that's a lot of money, especially if, again, if we're going to have another console coming up soon, and especially on the Microsoft side, I would argue that you're damn near better off getting a Windows PC. Get a laptop with a halfway decent video card in it. Get a mid-range desktop, because pretty much everything that comes out on the Xbox is also going to be coming day one to PC. And in many cases, especially first-party titles, they are going to be coming out on Game Pass. I believe Ninja Gaiden 4 will be. The Outer Worlds 2 will be. So these are games that, if instead of paying $60 to $80 for these games, at the very least, until I know how accessible they are, that they're going to be for me, I will go download them on my PC through the Xbox app and through Game Pass and be able to play them. So And then on top of that, you have your Steam library. You can get things from GOG. You can get things from the Epic Store. You can get things just off the web. You get some you get some small indie developer that creates a blind accessible game and you go download it from their website. You can do that on a PC. You can't do that on an Xbox or even a PlayStation. You have game mods. You have, your Hearthstone mod, your Stardew Valley mod, your Toby Doom, your Balatro mod, which I got to check out at some point. Like, there's so many things you can do with mods. You got Hades mod. Speaking of the Toby accessibility mod, I know that I said that we were probably going to get the 9.0 release. I did a video for that probably about a month and a half ago. And I apologize that we don't have that out yet. It is still coming, I promise you. Alan did email me just the other day and said that he is working on it. He just gave me another preview build to check out with some things that he's added. So remember when I said that he didn't have in the tutorial level, the kind of tour level that I showed you for Doom, he didn't have those for Heretic and Hexen. Well, apparently he's pretty much implemented those now, and some other tweaks and fixes as well that him and Predova and the team are working on because, again, everybody has been having such a busy summer. Alan had a lot going on and some things that he had to take care of personally. So, again, life happens, But I promise you that we will be getting 9.0, and I'll probably do another short 9.0 video updated, especially so I can show you because I want to look at some of the Heretic and Hexen maps myself. But I'm going to wait until we get a full release so that I can publicly share the link with you guys for that as well. But, so yeah, like Xbox, I don't know. Like, I don't really know if Microsoft knows what the hell it's doing. Like, in a way, they're kind of smart because they have this Xbox Anywhere thing where, oh, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. You hook up a controller to a TV, you hook a controller up to your iPad, you're hook it up to your computer or whatever, and you're going to be able to play a lot of Xbox games. So I really hope that they bring back more backwards compatible games, especially like your Xbox Live Arcade games, make them compatible, and be able to not only play them on Xbox consoles, but be able to play them via the cloud or play them, play them through Windows. Let me play my 360 games, have a compatibility layer, and let me play them on my PC. There are loads of Xbox 360, Xbox Live Arcade games that I would love to cover on the channel. I've covered a few, but there are plenty more. So, yeah, they're just in a really weird spot because they keep raising the price. They keep laying people off by the hundreds, I swear to God, if not thousands. So your guess is as good as mine, man. I don't know what they're gonna do, what they're gonna be doing. Like they are starting to have some games. For the few years there, they were constantly buying up little companies and whatnot. And then we're like, okay, you're buying all these companies, but where are the games? Well, yeah, they're starting to come. We've had a pretty good couple of years with some pretty strong releases, and I really want to see Fable. I really, really hope that Fable is good because Fable 1 and 2, loved them. 3 was, it was fine. It was okay, but it was nowhere near as good as Fable 1 and 2. 2 was the best, I think. 2 was by far the best, but I do have a soft spot for the original Fable. I remember playing that when I lived with a couple roommates from college, and we all kind of got into Fable, so that was fun. But yeah, Halo, I don't know, it could be interesting. There's another Gears game coming out sometime. like Emergence Day, I think it's called. So they do have stuff, but like I said, I don't know if they're turning so many people away because their consoles are so damn expensive now. So if you don't already have an Xbox, maybe they're just hoping, well, just get a Windows PC and play it there. I don't know. So yeah, we'll see what comes of Xbox and their accessibility. Speaking of buyouts and mergers or whatever, we just got news the other day that EA is going private. They got bought out by some big old conglomerate, and there's some Saudis involved, and I don't even remember. They named a few different people and places that were like they're getting bought out. And I don't know, like every time we get these big, every time we get these big buyouts or mergers, in theory, you think it might be okay, but when EA buys up a bunch of people, or when Activision would buy up a bunch of people, or then Microsoft and Activision merged, or Actibliz, Activision Blizzard. I don't know, like of course they're going to restructure to some degree, but they get so many layoffs and they get so many, just it's never ended well. Like they'll buy a company and then, or like how many companies have been sucked up by Activision or EA, and they used to make amazing games like Monolith or Raven or any number of studios. They were really good at what they did, and now they are stuck working in the live service mines. It could be for Call of Duty, it could be for Battlefield, it could be for any number of annual live service games, the Call of Duties or the whatever, and then some places just get shut down. And especially with the kind of whole vibe recently of, everyone is, now against DEI, which I don't get, because to me, inclusion is a good thing. Diversity, if you live in an echo chamber, you're never going to improve anything because, well, you just have everybody agreeing with you with the same opinion. And you need that a little bit of discourse. You need a little bit of actual friendly debate, I mean, I don't agree with everything. My friends and I don't always agree on everything 100%, but we're still great friends. You can be, not to get political, but you can be Republican, you can be Democrat, you can be third party. But God, be civil, negotiate. And the reason I bring up DEI and accessibility, because sometimes accessibility does get lumped in with DEI, DEIA. And with the kind of shying away from that the last year or so now especially, I would really, really hate to see a lot of the progress that we've made in the last few years, like 2020. And then 2023 was a huge year. We got a couple of really good AAAs. We got some indies that were totally blind accessible. And it's really slowed up. It's really dried up a lot since then. Ever since we had Diablo 4, we had Forza, we had Mortal Kombat 1 that year. That was all, I think, in the same year. I think Stories of Blossom was that year. We had, I don't know, a few other ones in there. 2024, I don't even remember what we had for blind accessible games. I know we must have had a couple. I mean, I know 2024 was huge for the Toby mod, because we had version 7.5 and 8.0. We got Heretic and Hexen added and whatever, and which is awesome. But as far as like your, AAA, AA, indie, I can't think of all that many games that have come out in the last couple of years that are mainstream games that are blind accessible. And if we get all these mergers, we get all these buyouts, and then they decide, yeah, well, if we're not going to be aligned, we're going to align with our, we're going to pull away from our DEI and our accessibility initiatives. Are we going to lose the talent and the experience and the knowledge that these teams have built over the years? Like I said, with Forza Horizon coming out next year, I really hope we're going to at least maintain, if not improve, the level of accessibility of that. And EA, the reason I bring that up too is related to the Game Accessibility Conference and a couple of upcoming videos I have in the near future. I think I did hear about it, but I either forgot or just glanced over it or something. There are a couple of other EA games that do have different levels of accessibility in them, and I've recorded videos for them already, so I will be releasing them, like I said, in the near future. I'm going to spread them apart a little bit. But for anybody curious, EA's F1 25, the Formula One racing game, F1 25, and FC 26, their new version of, they don't do FIFA anymore, but they call it FC is the new series. So the whatever it stands for. But their new soccer game, it doesn't have blind accessibility, but it does have some additional accessibility features, including a high contrast mode that you can actually play on and offline. Like even in competitive games, they allow you to play it. But I don't know anything about soccer. I know so little about soccer. It's kind of sad. But the reason I bring that up, if EA is starting to make progress with these games, again, if with this whole new buyout and, I don't know how receptive Saudi owners are going to be to doing accessibility, are we going to lose any forward progress for these things? Because what I will say is, I'll just give you a quick spoiler here. F1 25, it does not have menu narration, unfortunately. So hopefully that gets in F1 26. But if you memorize some of the menus, or I think somebody had created I think I read somewhere that somebody created a accessible menu guide for the game. When you get into the races, if you turn these features on, F1 25 actually has several audio assist or audio cue features similar to Forza Motorsport. They got inspired by what Forza did. I have played F1 25 for a little bit, and it's not bad. You have a lot of the accessible, like the audio cues for when you're near the edge of the track. They call out upcoming corners, like, your co-pilot, like a rally driver would, but instead they say like fast, medium, or slow. So your slow turns are your tight turns. Your fast turns are ones that are a little bit easier. They have cues for, like, if you're going too fast, you need to slow down before you hit the corner. And then you can speed back up again. So, like, it's maybe not quite as robust as Forza was. But for what's there, like, the driving is actually really quite good. And then you have just all the other, like, mainstream assists and customizations that you would have as a non-disabled player as well. So, you can kind of make it as casual or as crazy as you want, as crazy simulation as you want. So, yeah, I've got a video coming out for that. And I should mention both of those two games. If you do have an Xbox Live or Game Pass Ultimate account, I'm not sure about like the lower Game Pass tiers, but I know I have Game Pass Ultimate. And as part of that, you can get not the full games, but you can get like a trial period between, I think F1 had 5 hours and FIFA or FC had 10 hours. And you can basically play the full game for that period of time. And then if you want, you can buy them. But that's a really nice time as far as being able to, download the game, explore the settings, try it out, see how accessible it is, see if you like it. So, like I said, I have played both. I've got videos for both. And they will be coming out in the near future. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm definitely going to be picking up F1 when it goes on sale because I had a lot of fun playing several races through it so far. So when it goes on sale, maybe on Steam or something, yeah, I'll probably pick up that version. And hopefully F1 26 is even better, and hopefully they add menu narration, because then you would have two really good, possibly three. You could have Forza Motorsport, you possibly could have Forza Horizon, and you could have F1. And I genuinely hope now that other people that make racing games, I know Ubisoft does their the Crew games, or I don't know what's left. Sony has Gran Turismo. I would love to see them do something. Although the Gran Turismo games, God, their menus are just atrocious. Like I'm sorry, but their UI designer is terrible. Their menus are an absolute mess. And then you combine low vision with that, they're terrible. But I would, again, and not just simulation racers. I want a good, I would love a Need for Speed. I would love a Burnout. I would love any sort of, maybe you do like a indie or a AA racing game that implements some variation of these accessibility features in a more arcadey style racing game. Please bring it on, make it happen. I would love that. But that's why I wanted to mention the EA buyout, because, especially just in the last couple of days, having really rediscovered or relearned that a couple of their games have added additional accessibility features. In F1, other than the lack of menu narration, like the driving stuff, the in-game driving is actually pretty fun. And so I just hope because of this buyout that we don't regress and we don't hear about another thousands of people being laid off. Because that's what it is. It's the shareholders and it's all the high executives, and it's like, oh, well, we need to make our money. See ya. Anyone actually doing the work? So, yeah, we've had Xbox, we've had a Sony event. We already covered the Nintendo Direct from a couple weeks ago. New Apple stuff. I have not gotten any Apple devices from this year. No phone, no AirPods, no Apple Watch. I do have iOS 26, which, by the way, 26.01 is out, and supposedly they have fixed the random voiceover issue that some people were experiencing, where when you update and you reboot your phone, it does not speak during the passkey screen. So people should be able to update to that. I think I saw a post on AppleViz earlier today that has been resolved. So I'm glad they got that out quickly, because especially for the people who did already upgrade, that could be a very big problem. Thankfully, I have enough vision to be able to see to put in my passcode. But if you don't, you're going to need sighted assistance or you are screwed. So that is fixed. To wrap things up, I want to talk a little bit about the Game Accessibility Conference. We had that both Monday and Tuesday this week. As usual, it's been a lot of fun. We've been staring at the GAConf schedule page during this whole video instead of my YouTube channel page, because I figure for this one, I'm just going to navigate by heading here and go through the different events just so I can remember them all. Again, 2 full solid days worth of conferences, conference sessions, a lot of different topics covered. Again, if you are interested in games and game accessibility, advocacy, consulting, you owe it to yourself to join up and even virtually for free, you can join the North American conference in the fall, the European version in the spring, and again, I like to learn about other things instead of just blindness. I like learning. Oh, there was a thing about a panel on ADHD today. There was stuff for people who had, all kinds of things. So let's go through here. We got our schedule.
Schedule. Times are in September 29. News update link, permanent link to news.
So news update, they always start out, the first session is always Sir Ian of Hamilton. He does this kind of a news update and also releases a kind of a comprehensive document like, hey, what has been happening over the past 6 months or so in the world of game accessibility, be it hardware, software, new standard updates, new legal updates, and of course, new games that have implemented accessibility in them, even new accessibility hires in the industry. Like they like to highlight if people get like an accessibility role at a company, because again, it's becoming more common, but it's still not like an industry-wide adoption. And so I always love learning it because I always learn something like, oh, I didn't know, especially if it's not vision related, I may not follow it as closely. So I love to learn, oh, there's a new adaptive controller, or oh, there's a new software thingy that can do this, or oh, I didn't know these games came out, I must have missed a few. So that was a really good session.
Abiotic Factor. Accessibility design methodologies.
Abiotic Factor. That is a game that I have not played yet. It is on my wish list. I don't know that it has blind accessibility, but they did cover a lot of different topics as far as like, how they implemented accessibility, and it's fascinating. Even if it's not a genre of game that I particularly enjoy, or if it's a game that I can't necessarily play, I still like to hear how what and how a developer did to implement accessibility in their game, be it accessibility features, core design, universal design. So that was a good session.
Break link, permanent link to break heading level 2 PS5's accessible gaming journey.
That was kind of a neat one. PS5 accessible gaming journey. They talked about where it started and how it progressed. Remember in the PS4 days where we did have a screen reader, but it was very limited. You had the main level menus, but then you went into like a sub menu, and then it's like text to speech is not available here. Ah, crap. The Vita, I remember having accessibility features. That was one of the first consoles that did. I remember doing a video on that. And then going to the PS5, and they just talked a lot about like how they were considering accessibility. That was a really neat one. I enjoyed that. And all of these are going to be archived. The full days sessions, I think they already posted the Monday one last night, and then Tuesday one is probably already out by the time you see this video. But eventually they will have fully accessible, captioned, and sessions, individual sessions. So if there's a specific one that you want to watch, they will have those out within the near future. So just keep that in mind.
Maximizing accessibility for micro indies link, permanent link to maximizing
micro indies. That was a neat one because it was really talking about again, as an indie developer, you have some advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages, well, I don't have a lot of, the financial and other, human resources to be able to do a lot of, not just accessibility, but, I really have to keep in mind the scope of my project. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew when I'm trying to develop something, whether that's graphics or sound or gameplay. Maybe if you're a micro indie, you might not want to start out with a, giant open world RPG. It's just, you're probably going to have a lot of trouble with that, or it's going to take forever. And, and the same thing with accessibility. But at the same time, you have a lot of positives. You don't have to committee everything to death. You don't have 17 different departments and, and 500,000 people to be like, well, you know, do we get the okay? Is this department okay with doing some accessibility? Is that department okay? Are they going to work together? Is management going to buy in? If I'm a small developer and I see some low-hanging fruit that I can just make this quick little change, and that will allow a lot more people to play my game. If I'm a really small indie developer, micro indie, I can just make that executive decision that I'm going to prioritize this, and that's just what we're going to do. So that was a good session.
Launch link, permanent link to a fresh set of specs. Accessibility for ideation link, permanent link to a fresh set of specs. Accessibility for ideation heading level 2.
So that was another, oh God, like I said, I'm trying to remember what that one, yeah, that was more advice like for developers. Again, talking about ideation. I don't remember a lot of specifics on that one. It kind of escapes me. But like I said, I all of these were pretty interesting.
Surveyor, facilitating discovery within 3D.
Surveyor, this one was fascinating, and I hope I got to read the full paper. I have in another tab.
Surveyor
Maybe
sealed
I'll try to remember to put a link in the description for this too here. This is
Schedule.
they did a paper and they did a project. They built some prototypes of navigating an environment as a blind player. So, and not just navigating it like from start to finish. As good as The Last of Us is, they said, it was good, but if you were totally blind, you still didn't get the same experience as you would if you had some vision. Because even if you were following the guided line, okay, you were following the guided line. And then even if you were using the sonar feature to locate enemies or locate items that you could pick up, you couldn't just really freely explore. And, if I'm a sighted player, I can enter a new environment. Maybe I walk over the crest of a hill and I look down. I see there's a forest down to my right. I see there's a town up ahead of me. I see there's some kind of burning building in my down into my left. If I were to go down the hill that way. And, within like a couple of seconds, I can really get the quick lay of the land and go, that looks interesting. I want to explore what's off in the distance. Whereas everything is so linear if you're blind. Like you have to literally be, kind of follow an objective or target, are there any collectibles? Are there any enemies? Or if there are even locations, they talked about like a lot of, not just in games, but even in like virtual applications or something where you select a location from a menu, like, oh, I want to go to the kitchen. I want to go to the bedroom. I want to go to the entryway. It's so clinical. It's sterile, like I get to choose from a menu and everyone else gets to walk around this world and look at the architecture, look at the decorations on the wall, look at the the beautiful forest or the rundown bombed out town, whatever it happens to be. And so they had some interesting ideas, and I want to go back and I want to watch some of the videos that they have for this surveyor thing because I really like some of the ideas. And a little side diversion.
Facing surveyor.
Also, if this isn't GAConf related, but it is game accessibility related. Again, huge shout out to Brandon Cole, RIP. But Misty has been working over the last year to get his book out, and it is out on Kindle. I don't know if it's going to come to like Audible or Bard or other services, but you can buy it on Kindle. You can read it with the Kindle iOS app and probably the Android app as well. I have read it already, and he does talk. He gives kind of a history about accessible games and overview. Again, it's a really good book, especially for like people who are new to blind accessibility, be it a gamer or a developer. A lot of this stuff, like if you're really into accessible games, you may already know a fair bit of it. But I like some of the deep dive chapters where he go into different types of blind accessibility elements to a game, like menu narration, navigation assists, audio cues. And I was thinking about, this surveyor thing. That's why that's why I wanted to bring it up. He was really talking about like having almost like a guide, like think about like, although less annoying, think about like Navi in the Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, or he was talking about like Spider-Man, like, hey, what if instead of being rigidly locked to a path, like what if you had this sort of kind of guide that would, he explains it way better than I will because, from what I remember, but like his idea and then compared with the survey thing, if you kind of combine these two different things together, could open up and just make a lot of the exploration, more exploration-y. I know that's not really a word, but more fun, more free-flowing, instead of I have to follow this exact breadcrumb, or I have to be led around everywhere. It's like I can't. I'm playing the game independently, but I'm not like freely exploring and getting in all the atmosphere that I would if I had some vision. So yeah, I would say definitely pick up Brandon's book if you're interested. Brandon Cole. I'd have to look at my Kindle app to remember the name of it. I did retweet it though the other day as well. But that was a good session, this survey.
Facing the Future, a history of positive disability representation in video games, permanent link to Facing the Future.
So yeah, this one was interesting too. There's been some positive and not so positive, some positive and some negative representation of disability representation in games, and movies for that matter, or TV. But this session, they kind of the presenter gave some examples of where they thought there was some good disability representation. And I've seen, some decent representation myself, but I've also seen some really, really not good ones. The one that immediately comes to mind many years ago, go check out I think I did like 2 or 3 videos for it because I was just fascinated and yet somewhat appalled. Go check out my videos for Beyond Eyes. I really, really wanted to like that game, but there were definitely some issues with representation there. But yeah, go look up Beyond Eyes. I covered that many years ago on the channel, and I had some, and I did like a couple of videos on the game itself, and then I went back. I think it was like a third time, and I gave some actual suggestions and feedback of how you could turn what the game was into something a lot better, not just gameplay mechanics wise, but also, from a disability perspective, because it was all over the place. I applaud them for attempting, but maybe they should have actually talked to people who were disabled. But yeah.
Able to play. Accessibility data at scale link, permanent link to able to play.
So another data at scale, again, talking about again, more of a developer side, like getting information on your players and how they use features, and just again, a data heavy session. I mean, there, it is interesting, um, but I don't really know specifically what I could say about that off the top of my head.
Break link, permanent link behind the scenes. EA's accessibility program link, permanent link to behind.
So they talked about EA's accessibility program. This is where I actually learned about F1 and FC, and so I was able to check those out through Game Pass and the EA partnership that they have. But they talked about Madden and not just that, but like not even just their sports games, but some of their like, oh, what the heck was it? I covered the Star Wars games that they made. Not Outcast because that was Ubisoft, but Jedi Survivor. But that was a neat talk. And it's interesting because whether it's Ubisoft or whether it's EA, especially when it relates to blind accessibility, like don't get me wrong, there's way more to accessibility than blind accessibility. But it's so interesting to see like so many games are starting to implement accessibility, but it must be like blind accessibility must be one of the more difficult aspects to do, because there's a lot of games that will offer like menu narration, or they'll offer a couple like text size features for low vision, but they just don't get like the world navigation assists or full complete menu narration, that kind of a thing. So, but that was an interesting
Weaving
talk.
accessibility into South of Midnight link, permanent link to
South of Midnight, that was another really good session. I covered that game on the channel. I beat the game earlier this year. They did some really nice accessibility things, and they fully acknowledged that with the time and the budget and the resources that they had, they wanted to do blind accessibility, but they just couldn't get that far with what they had this time. But they did already have some prototype things for like, especially the kind of the guiding line that guides you to your next objective, and you can still explore freely if you want to. But they talked a lot about like the different accessibility features that they were able to put in that game. And again, now that they have that down, now they can work on something else for whatever they create next. So that was another great session.
September 30th, 3 approaches to accessibility design in Squeak Ross. Home Squeak Home link, permanent link to 3 approaches.
So this was another one. This was a developer. I don't think it's blind accessible, but they did some low vision-y stuff. But they also made, this was kind of almost like a Picross type of game that you've heard of, like Mario Picross, or it's like a Sudoku type of game where you have like a grid and you have numbers and stuff. I haven't really covered any of those on my channel because I'm not very good at them. But I might check it out when it goes on sale. They talked about having like what I liked about this is their presentation. They talked not about just accessibility features, but core design, and looking at like the genre as a whole. Like there's dozens of these types of puzzle games out there, and they all sort of follow similar gameplay design, similar like restrictions, or they all have timers, they all kind of work a similar way. And they're like, well, that's true, but does that have to be the case? Because we look at, they talked to other gamers, they talked to players, they looked at negative reviews for other games, and they would kind of figure out, oh, well, this seems to be kind of a consistent theme. This is what people are complaining about. Well, what can we do to make our game address some of these things that people often complain about in this genre? So they looked at it from like a gameplay native, like a universal design standpoint, and I like the way that they did that. And they talked about having like a light mode, a dark mode, again, no timers, but then again, even though they had these features, let's say they had timers off by default because they wanted it to be just a chill, relaxing puzzle game. But for people that are used to these types of tropes or what have you in the genre, you can turn those things on. So if you want more of a challenge, or if you want a specific feature that isn't on by default, they still put those in there for people that want like yet another one of those types of experiences.
Accessibility inertia. Moving and momentum link. Permanent link to accessibility inertia. Moving and momentum
This
heading level 2.
one I don't remember too much of, because I think that was where I started having a little bit of technical issues this morning. My Zoom was being stupid, and so I heard part of it, but I didn't get to do too much of it. I think this was the
accessibility inertia. Moving and momentum link. Permanent link to
I think this was the Microsoft one, where they had a bunch of people from different Microsoft studios come in, and so what I heard of it, I remember really kind of finding interesting, but it's one that I definitely want to go back and try to listen to again, because I was having a little bit of technical issues during a couple different areas of today. Like yesterday was good, but today, I don't know, my internet just started being stupid.
Break link. Permanent link. How your user research process excludes people with disabilities, and how to fix this. Link. Permanent link.
So that's a pretty self-explanatory title, but if you're doing a research project, you want to make sure that people with disabilities are included, all abilities. So they talked about different ways to kind of make sure that you're doing that, and that was good.
Lost in a side quest. Gaming with ADHD link. Permanent link.
This was actually a really fascinating panel. So the first day we had, developers, and the second day we had a panel of players. And this one is really interesting because if I didn't know any better by a lot of what they were talking about, I would think that, boy, do I have ADHD, because I can identify with tons of this stuff. Because again, you think about what helps one type of player can help many types of players. Subtitles, again, are not just for deaf people. They are for anyone who wants to be able to read the dialogue in addition to hearing it. Maybe therefore, if you're in a crowded area and it's noisy, you want to be able to see what the people are saying. Maybe you have to keep your TV quiet because you have somebody sleeping in the room next to you. Text-to-speech is also good, not just for blind people, but for low vision or people with dyslexia, or a learning disability, a cognitive impairment, whatever. But like they talked about a lot of different things, whether it was like maps, like how Prince of Persia, they would allow you to like put pins on the map and make notes on it, and that way you can figure out where the heck you're supposed to go when you need to backtrack, or when you come back to a game, you're like, where did I leave off in this giant RPG? What was I working on? Kind of giving some sort of a last time you played, this is what you did, or how they kind of work around those things. Or even control-wise, I play a lot of different games at a time, and so I'll go back to a game, like even let's say I go back to Doom: The Dark Ages, and I'm like, because I remember some of the button mappings were a little bit weird. I think F was like a use, or no, F was, I don't remember what F was, but like, again, going back to a game, just getting, you come back to a game after a prolonged period of time where you haven't played it, and you're like, what do I need to do again? How do I play this game again? What are the controls? Especially if you got a lot of, complicated mechanics or controls. But there were a lot of different things. I'm like, oh yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, and I would be okay with that myself. So that was a fun session.
Lunch link. Permanent from idea to invention. The Endwalk journey link. Permanent link to from idea to invention. The Endwalk journey heading level 2.
I'm trying to remember what this one was. It was a specific game, I think. I don't remember the...
ID to invent NWAD space NAUAD space
NWAD. I'm trying to remember what the heck that was. For some reason, I'm absolutely just drawing a blank. Sorry.
Automated testing for subtitle accessibility in games link. Permanent link to automated testing for subtitle accessibility.
So again, another thing we just talked about subtitles, but they're talking about how to make those accessible, and this group made a tool that was custom made to help automate some of the subtitle testing. So comparing actual written dialogue to spoken text, because even if like a lot of times people will like the audio will say one thing and then the subtitles will say something slightly or completely different. Maybe they had a script change later on, maybe there was a typo, maybe just something got translated wrong. But that was a session all about subtitles. Again, it's very important. It affects a lot of people. They kept throughout the whole conference. They talked a lot about how, 96% of people would use subtitles in games. It's not just for deaf and hard of hearing gamers, but I'm one of the 4% of people that subtitles really doesn't help much because I can't read them quickly enough. So I really, really need the audio. But it was still a neat talk.
Beyond the checkbox, building accessibility into FC26 link, permanent link to Beyond the
FC.
checkbox.
So this is where this is where they talked about the accessibility features that they put in the soccer game, including they really focused on the new high contrast mode and how they got buy-in from the team. And once they had another theme of this whole conference was, play tests and, kind of workshops that developers would have. They would bring players in, advocates, consultants, and hear directly from the players that it would affect. And then once, that people would see, the developers would see people struggling or learn about their experiences, it kind of it put a personal touch. It put a face to the problems instead of just you should do this because this standard says you should. That was a really common theme this year too. So that was an interesting one.
Arcade games with one arm.
This one was really fun. So this guy, he had lost one of his arms a few years ago, and they went to this giant arcade, this Galloping Ghosts arcade, which I think would be great fun to visit one day. And he was trying to play all kinds of different games and see and rank how accessible they were. Anything from old classic arcade games to fighting game, anything from Dig Dug to fighting games to beat 'em ups to any number of a lot of different games. But it was really a fun, funny, entertaining talk, but it was still pretty informative. I love the joke that he had, I forget how it was worded, but because as we all know, people with disabilities weren't invented until after 1979. And I thought that was funny because I'm no, I was actually invented in 1979. I like the word invented. That was pretty funny. Just a little bit of self-aware kind of snarky humor. That was just a fun session.
Break link permanent. VR is for everyone.
VR is for everyone. Boy, howdy. This was a very interesting session to me. They really echoed a lot of what I've been saying for years and have been covering on the channel for years. And to hear it being validated yet again is good. And I just hope that we are finally starting to get somewhere, what with PlayStation having a little bit of a screen reader to their headset, and now Meta adding a little bit of accessibility gradually to theirs. I hope they continue down that path. And it wasn't just for blind low vision, but just accessibility in general. There was a lot of talk about motion sickness, because that's a common thing that a lot of people experience in virtual reality. Thankfully, I do not. I'm one of the weird few people who it doesn't bother me. But not only do they get motion sickness, but it can really mess people up. It's this totally different sensation that anyone is ever really used to. And so they talked about how people who used to get car sick and then they got better as they got older, they tried VR and then they got really motion sick, but then it brought back real life problems for being motion sick in a car. So yeah, I mean that's a really big focus because it's such a, and then just UI design, whether it's visual, and they specifically mentioned the fixed distance, which is the bane of my existence. They talked about being able to move around a space or being able to reach things or manipulate items, because you're not often just pressing buttons. You could be grabbing something, you could be throwing something, you could be any number of different things. So that was a good session.
Tag, you're it. Tools to implement the Accessible Games Initiative tags link, permanent link to tag.
And the wrap-up one was with the recent ESA tagging system that got announced. I talked about this a little bit on the channel a few months ago when this was announced, but they actually had people from the ESA and whatnot kind of talking about it and explaining how the tags worked, and for developers how to check for their game, and how to evaluate and what so they accurately tag their games. So that's the thing, is if you have these accessibility features in your product, you have to let players know that these things are available, because if I don't know that they're there, I won't necessarily play the game because I don't know about it. And so they had, that was a good session. They talked a lot about, they broke down, they used South of Midnight as an example, but they really broke down, okay, well, does it have this feature? What would you consider to be that feature? How do you differentiate between these different types of things? It was just a really good kind of an overview and basic understanding for the tagging system, both for players and for developers. If I go look at an Xbox or a PlayStation or even a Nintendo game, they had a Nintendo person there. And, Steam kind of does their own thing, which is similar but slightly different. I hope that some of those kind of come closer together parity-wise, and so that they're, they kind of follow the same type of standards. But, does something have menu narration? Does it have text size? Does it have a high contrast mode? Does it have subtitles? Does it have controller remapping? Any number of things. So that was those are the sessions that they had at the Game Accessibility Conference. Again, eventually the sessions will be put out
Gamers Corner
individually, so you can see that for yourself. But it was a really informative day. It was a fun couple of days. A lot of good sessions per usual. A lot of good chat in the Discord. Like I said, I learned about those EA games and got a couple videos for those coming up pretty soon. F1 in particular, I was actually rather impressed with. But I think that is where we will end it, because, like I said, I've talked a little bit about some, gaming events and the conferences and upcoming games. I mean, God, there's a lot of indie shooters coming out. There's a couple beat 'em ups I think that are coming. There's Hades 2 has come out of early access, and unfortunately there is no menu narration natively. They didn't listen to us after Hades 1, despite the mod being out there, despite blind people playing the game with and without the mod. It looks like we're going to have to rely on some third party to make another mod for Hades 2, because unfortunately the 1.0 version doesn't have anything like that. So I will, when I get a chance. I picked it up in early access. I covered it a long time ago. But I will check out the full 1.0 version to give you my thoughts on Hades 2 eventually. There's so many games. There's retro shooters. We got scary games. We've got The Outer Worlds 2. There's a Double Dragon game coming out. I can't even remember. I know I have a buttload of games in my Steam wish list. And I'll hear things on Twitter. I'm going, oh crap, okay, that's out today. So I'll be checking those out. Again, Toby Doom will be coming here hopefully within the next month or so. And when I see the final updates for that, I will do another video and put a link in the description so you can grab that mod when it's out for yourself. Again, life just got in the way, and the team they're working on it, but they've been busy. There's the new Apple Viz podcast. Trying to think. Oh, I didn't even look. There was an Amazon event today. There's some new Echo devices, some new Kindle devices. I did actually the other day just get invited finally into the You Know Who Plus program, ALEXA program. I didn't want to set off my speaker. I did try it a little bit on my bedroom speaker, and it's interesting, but it doesn't seem to, right now, it doesn't seem to solve the problem that I had with the original version of her, is because they have all these skills, but you had to say them in a very specific way, and then I wouldn't do it for a while, and then I would forget what the thing was called or how to exactly say the skill. And so I just kind of quit using the skills because I would forget. And I was hoping that with the new Plus version that would work better, but every time I would say, hey, let's play a game, or what can I do? And it would just say, I can let you know what's new or what's popular. And then I would choose one of those and then say, oh yeah, there are lots of games. Go to the blah, blah, blah app, and then you can choose one. I'm like, well, if I had to go to the app, then why do I need you? I should be able to ask you, I want to play a trivia game. I want to play an adventure game. Or if I remember, I want to play that Jeopardy game or whatever it is. Or if I want to use whatever skill, it should be able to conversationally tell me those things, but it doesn't really seem that good yet. Maybe I'm missing something. I haven't given it a whole lot of playtime experimenting with it yet, but it has potential, but at the same time, it doesn't really seem even ChatGPT or Ally or other different things. They just seem to understand and at least be able to kind of act a little bit more on what you would want. So yeah, I have that coming. I do have those 2 pair of smart glasses coming whenever they do come. Hopefully we'll get the Ally glasses sometime in October. Maybe we'll get the Echo Visions in probably November or something. I think they pushed it back again. I don't know. So we have Ally, we have AI things, we have glasses, we have games, we have a lot of stuff eventually that we're going to be covering. So yeah, it's a busy time. It is a very busy time, but I hope, and we did get a Power Wash Simulator 2 demo. We still don't have a release date for it, but I played the demo this morning, and it's a good one. It is more Power Wash Simulator, just with a few more upgrades and tweaks, and that is not a bad thing at all. I must have it now. I must have it immediately. I'm really, really wanting the release date for that. So yeah, a lot of things. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. You can follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, Blue Sky at Illegally Cited, illegally-cited.com, and of course right here on YouTube. And until next time, I will chat with everybody again later.
Desktop.